Sarah Chen walked through the golden wheat fields of New Eden Colony, watching the morning sun paint the sky in soft colors. The wheat swayed gently in the breeze, ready for harvest. In the distance, she could see children playing near the settlement buildings. Their laughter carried across the fields like music. New Eden was everything humanity had dreamed of when they first looked to the stars. Clean air, fertile soil, and peace. The colony had grown from a small outpost to a thriving community of 8,000 people in just 15 years. They grew food, raised families, and lived simple lives far from Earth's crowded cities. Sarah checked her tablet as she walked. The morning reports showed everything running smoothly. The farms were producing more food than the colony could use. The excess would be shipped to other human settlements across the galaxy. Trade was good and life was peaceful. At Prometheus Station, 3 light-years away, Dr. Marcus Webb was having his morning coffee while reviewing research data. The station floated in space near a gas giant, its laboratories filled with scientists studying alien plants and animals. They had recently discovered bacteria that could cure a deadly disease affecting the Rigelian species. Webb smiled as he read the latest test results. Soon they would be able to save thousands of lives. The station housed 2,000 researchers and their families. Like New Eden, it seemed peaceful and harmless from the outside. The only ships docked there were cargo vessels and research shuttles. No weapons, no military vessels. Just scientists trying to make the galaxy a better place. On Terra Nova, the third human colony in the Outer Rim, 10,000 colonists were starting their day. Some worked in the mines extracting rare minerals. Others tended to the vast gardens that supplied fresh vegetables to nearby systems. The colony's main business was trade, and merchant ships came and went regularly. 8-year-old Tommy Rodriguez ran through Terra Nova's central plaza, chasing his friends in a game of tag. His mother watched from a nearby bench, smiling as she worked on her tablet. She was a teacher at the colony school, where 300 children learned about math, science, and the wonders of the universe. Tommy's father worked in the communication center, keeping the colony connected to the rest of human space. Sometimes he let Tommy visit the center and watch the messages coming in from Earth and other colonies. Tommy dreamed of becoming a pilot someday and visiting all the places he heard about in those messages. Far above these peaceful colonies, Commander Vextai of the Zephyrian hegemony studied sensor readings from his flagship. The massive warship was part of a fleet of 50 vessels, all armed with the latest weapons. The Zephyrians were a proud warrior race who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the galaxy. These human settlements are pathetic, Vextai told his second-in-command. Look at these readings. No defense platforms, no military ships, no weapon signatures. They are like children playing in a field, unaware of the wolves watching them. The Zephyrian intelligence reports painted humans as a weak species. They were farmers and traders, the report said. They avoided conflict and preferred to negotiate rather than fight. Their colonies were defended only by local security forces with basic weapons. The humans had spread across many systems, but they had never shown any real military strength. "Sir, should we demand their surrender first?" asked the second-in-command. "They might give us what we want without a fight." Vextai laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Where is the glory in that? Besides, we need to send a message to all the soft species in this sector. When the Zephyrian hegemony wants something, we take it. Fear is more useful than negotiation." The Zephyrians had been expanding their territory for decades, conquering weaker species and taking their resources. They saw the human colonies as easy targets. The settlements were rich in food, minerals, and technology. More importantly, they were located in systems that the hegemony wanted to control. Back on New Eden, Sarah was meeting with the Colony Council in the main building. They discussed plans for expanding the farming areas and building new homes for the growing population. The colony had received applications from thousands of people on Earth who wanted to start new lives among the stars. "We'll need to be careful not to grow too fast," said David Park, the head of agriculture. "We want to maintain our quality of life and protect the environment." "Agreed," Sarah replied. "This is what makes us different from the old Earth. We have a chance to build something better here." None of them knew that. Death was approaching from the darkness of space. Dr. Webb was in his laboratory when his assistant brought him tea. They were discussing the final test for the Rigelian cure when an alert chimed on the computer. "What's that?" Webb asked. "Probably just a cargo ship requesting docking permission," his assistant replied. The automated systems will handle it. But it wasn't a cargo ship. Far beyond Prometheus Station's sensor range, the Zephyrian fleet was preparing for attack. The aliens had studied human technology and found it inferior to their own. The humans used simple weapons and basic shields. Their ships were designed for cargo and research, not war. On Terra Nova, Tommy was in school when his teacher, Mrs. Patterson, received a message on her communicator. She frowned as she read it, then looked up at her students with a forced smile. "Children, we're going to have an early lunch today," she said. "Please line up quietly at the door." The message had been from the colony's early warning system. Long-range sensors had detected unknown ships approaching the outer system, but the ships were still days away and the alert level was only yellow. Probably traders or explorers, the security chief had decided. Tommy noticed his teacher seemed worried, but he was too excited about early lunch to think much about it. He grabbed his friend's hand and hurried toward the cafeteria. Commander Vextai stood before a holographic display showing the 3 human colonies. Red targeting markers highlighted key locations: power plants, communication centers, population areas. "The attack will begin at dawn, their time," he announced to his officers. "First orbital bombardment to destroy their infrastructure, then ground forces to secure valuable resources and eliminate any survivors." "What about prisoners, sir?" asked a young officer. "For questioning?" "No prisoners," Vextai said coldly. "We want to send a clear message. When you enter Zephyrian space, you die. Fear will keep other species away from our territory." The fleet moved closer to the human colonies, weapons charging and troops preparing for battle. The Zephyrians had no doubt about the outcome. In their experience, peaceful species died quickly when faced with superior force. Sarah stood in her office that evening, looking out at the colony's lights. Families were having dinner together. Children were finishing their homework. Young couples were taking walks under the stars. It was a perfect picture of human civilization at its best. She thought about her own family back on Earth, her parents, who had sacrificed so much to give her a good education, her sister, who worked as a doctor in New York. They were proud of what she had accomplished here on New Eden. Tomorrow, she planned to send them a message with pictures of the Harvest Festival. The colonists were organizing a celebration to mark another successful year of growth and prosperity. There would be music, dancing, and food for everyone. Sarah smiled and closed her office windows. She had no idea that tomorrow would bring fire from the sky instead of celebration. The peaceful life she had built was about to end, and the galaxy was about to learn something terrible about the species they thought was weak. In space, the Zephyrian fleet took its final positions. Weapon systems showed green across all ships. The attack would begin in 6 hours. Commander Vextai retired to his quarters, satisfied with his plan. By this time tomorrow, the human colonies would be nothing but smoking ruins, and 3 strategic systems would belong to the Zephyrian hegemony. The first plasma beam struck New Eden's power plant at exactly 600 local time. The explosion lit up the dawn sky like a second sun, and the shockwave shattered windows across the colony. Sarah Chen was thrown from her bed as the building shook around her. "What the hell?" she gasped, struggling to her feet. Outside her window, she could see a pillar of fire rising from the industrial district. Then she saw the ships in the sky, black shapes against the morning light, and her blood turned cold. The second beam hit the communication center. Tommy Rodriguez's father was at his post, trying to send an emergency message to Earth when the roof exploded above him. The blast vaporized the building and everyone inside it in seconds. Tommy was having breakfast with his mother on Terra Nova when the attack began there too. The first explosion was so bright it hurt to look at. His mother grabbed him and ran toward the emergency shelter, but they never made it. A plasma beam turned their street into a river of molten glass. Dr. Webb was in his laboratory on Prometheus Station when the weapons hit. The station shuddered under the impact and emergency alarms started screaming. He looked out the observation window and saw Zephyrian fighters swarming around the station like angry wasps. "All hands to emergency stations," came the announcement over the speakers. "We are under attack." "Repeat, we are under attack." Webb ran toward the evacuation pods, but explosions rocked the corridor. The lights went out and he found himself crawling through smoke and debris. Behind him, he could hear people screaming. On New Eden, Sarah managed to reach the colony's command center. The building was damaged but still standing. Inside, she found chaos. The communication officer was desperately trying to contact Earth, but all the long-range transmitters were destroyed. "Mayday, mayday," Sarah shouted into her communicator. "This is New Eden Colony.
We are under attack.
Unknown hostiles are bombing the settlement." Outside, the plasma bombardment continued. The hospital exploded in a ball of fire. The school where children had been learning just hours before was now a crater. The beautiful wheat fields that Sarah had walked through yesterday morning were burning. The Zephyrian ground troops landed 30 minutes after the bombardment began. They came in fast assault ships, armed with energy weapons and wearing powered armor. Their orders were simple: kill all humans and secure valuable resources. Commander Vextai watched the attack from his flagship, pleased with the results. The human settlements were burning exactly as planned. His sensors showed massive casualties and complete destruction of military targets. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from the colonies," reported his communication officer. "Let me hear them," Vextai said with amusement. The speakers filled with desperate human voices. "Please help us," screamed a woman from Terra Nova. "They're killing everyone. Oh God, they got the children's shelter." From Prometheus Station came Dr. Webb's voice. "This is Dr. Marcus Webb. We have critical research here that could save millions of lives. Please, we're not soldiers. We're just scientists." Vextai laughed. "Weak. Pathetic. This is why peaceful species don't deserve to live among the stars." On New Eden, Sarah and a small group of survivors had barricaded themselves in the command center. Through the security cameras, they watched Zephyrian soldiers moving through the colony. The aliens were methodically searching every building, shooting any humans they found. "We need to warn Earth," Sarah said. "They have to know what's happening out here." The communication officer shook his head. "All our long-range equipment is destroyed. We can only broadcast on local frequencies." "Then we use the emergency beacon," Sarah decided. "It's our only chance." The emergency beacon was designed to send a message to Earth in case of disasters. It had its own power source and transmitter, hidden beneath the colony. Sarah and two others crawled through the maintenance tunnels to reach it. Behind them, they could hear the Zephyrian soldiers breaking into the command center. Weapons fire echoed through the tunnels, followed by screams. Sarah reached the beacon room with bloody hands and tears in her eyes. Half the people she had known for 15 years were dead. The colony she had helped build was burning, but she still had one job to do. She activated the emergency beacon and began recording her message. "This is Colony Administrator Sarah Chen of New Eden," she said into the transmitter. "We are under attack by unknown hostiles. They came without warning and began orbital bombardment at 600 local time. Estimated casualties are in the thousands. An explosion shook the room and dust fell from the ceiling. The attackers appear to be the Zephyrian hegemony," she continued. "They are not taking prisoners. They are systematically killing all civilians, including children. If anyone receives this message, please warn Earth. Please tell our families that we—" The door exploded inward. Zephyrian soldiers rushed in, their weapons raised. Sarah had just enough time to hit the transmit button before the energy beams cut her down. On Prometheus Station, Dr. Webb had reached an evacuation pod. The station was dying around him, its hull torn open by weapons fire. He could see bodies floating in the corridors, scientists and researchers who had dedicated their lives to helping others. He thought about the cure for Rigelian plague, stored in the station's main computer. Thousands of Rigelians would die without it. He couldn't let that knowledge be destroyed. Webb left the evacuation pod and fought his way back to his laboratory through the wreckage. The station was losing atmosphere, and he could barely breathe. His hands were shaking as he downloaded the research data to a portable storage device. A Zephyrian soldier found him there, hunched over the computer terminal. "Please," Webb gasped, holding up the storage device. "This contains the cure for a disease. Innocent people will die without it. I'm not a soldier. I'm just trying to help." The alien looked at him with cold eyes and raised his weapon. "Please," Webb whispered. The energy beam vaporized him instantly. Back on Terra Nova, Tommy Rodriguez was hiding in a supply closet with 3 other children. They had been separated from their parents when the attack began. The older kids were trying to keep the younger ones quiet, but everyone was crying. They could hear the Zephyrian soldiers searching the building, their heavy footsteps getting closer. Tommy thought about his father at the communication center and his mother who had been running with him toward the shelter. He hoped they were safe, but deep down he knew they were gone. The footsteps stopped outside the closet. Door. Mommy, whispered the little girl next to Tommy. The door exploded open. Commander, Fexte received the final casualty reports. 3 hours after the attack began. New Eden Colony, 8,000 dead, no survivors found. Prometheus Station, 2,000 dead, station destroyed. Terra Nova, 10,000 dead, mining facilities secured. Excellent work, he told his officers. Total human casualties, 20,000, our losses minimal. Mark these systems as claimed by the hegemony. The Zephyrian fleet prepared to leave the devastated systems. Their mission was complete. The human colonies were nothing but smoking ruins. Their people were dead, and their resources now belonged to the hegemony. As the ships jumped to hyperspace, automated emergency beacons continued broadcasting from the wreckage. The signals carried desperate messages from the dying colonies, but there was no one left to hear them. Sarah's final transmission traveled through space at the speed of light, racing toward Earth with news of the massacre. It would take weeks to reach the inner systems, but when it did, it would change everything. The Zephyrians had made one critical error in their planning. They had studied human technology and found it weak. They had analyzed human behavior and found it peaceful. They had examined human colonies and found them defenseless. But they had never asked the most important question. Why would a species capable of interstellar travel appear so helpless? They were about to find out. In the ruins of New Eden, Terra Nova, and Prometheus Station, the emergency beacons continued their broadcasts. The messages spoke of families destroyed, children murdered, and scientists killed while trying to help others. The signals traveled through space, carrying news of the atrocity to anyone who might be listening. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, other signals began to stir in response. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you killed humanity's children. Admiral Helena Reyes stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, Switzerland, staring at the holographic display that showed the outer colonies. 3 green dots had been blinking steadily for years, representing New Eden, Prometheus Station, and Terra Nova. Now they were dark. The emergency beacon signals had taken 72 hours to reach Earth's communication arrays. When they did, they triggered alerts across every military installation on the planet. Within minutes, the highest levels of human government knew that 20,000 of their people were dead. "Show me the transmission again," Admiral Reyes said quietly. The main screen filled with Sarah Chen's final message. Her voice was steady despite the explosions in the background, professional even as death approached her door. "This is Colony Administrator Sarah Chen of New Eden. We are under attack by unknown hostiles." President Maria Santos walked into the war room as the message ended. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking slightly. She had been president for 8 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. "How many?" she asked. 20,000 confirmed dead," replied General Harrison, the head of military intelligence. 3 colonies completely destroyed. No survivors detected, and the attackers, the Zephyrian hegemony. Our intelligence files show they're a militaristic species from the Andromeda Spiral. They've been expanding their territory for decades, conquering weaker civilizations. President Santos closed her eyes. For 50 years, humanity had maintained a careful facade of weakness. They had presented themselves to the galaxy as peaceful farmers and traders, avoiding conflicts and focusing on commerce. It had been a deliberate strategy, designed to keep aggressive species from seeing them as a threat. The plan had worked too well. "They thought we were weak," Santos said. "They thought they could kill our people without consequences." Admiral Reyes nodded grimly. "The colonies were designed to look defenseless. We wanted early warning if hostile species entered our territory. We just never expected," she gestured at the dark display, "this." What the galaxy didn't know was that humanity's real strength was hidden. For decades, they had been building military installations in secret locations throughout the solar system, asteroid bases that looked like mining operations, research stations that were actually weapons laboratories, cargo ships that could transform into warships at a moment's notice. "Ma'am," interrupted a communication officer, "we're receiving signals from the deep space arrays." "Put them on screen," Admiral Reyes ordered. The display showed incoming messages from across the solar system. Hidden bases were reporting ready status. Cloaked ships were dropping their stealth fields. The true human military was awakening. From the asteroid belt came reports of massive shipyards revealing themselves. What had appeared to be mining operations were actually construction facilities, building warships in the darkness between worlds. The miners were military engineers, and their cargo haulers were disguised battleships. Mars reported that its geological research stations were opening to reveal launch bays filled with fighters and bombers. The red planet's polar ice caps hid fusion reactors powerful enough to supply energy to an entire fleet. Even Earth's moon was not what it seemed. Beneath its surface lay command centers and weapon systems that could coordinate military operations across light years of space. "My God," whispered President Santos.
"How long have we been preparing for this?"
"Since the first day we reached the stars," Admiral Reyes replied. "We learned early that the galaxy is full of predators. We decided to be the wolf disguised as a sheep." The communication officer spoke again. "Ma'am, Admiral Chen is requesting permission to speak with you." Admiral Chen was Sarah Chen's older brother, commander of the Ghost Fleet. The Ghost Fleet was humanity's most secret military unit, composed of ships so advanced they were invisible to most sensors. They had been patrolling the outer rim for years, watching and waiting. "Helena," Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers. "I've been monitoring Zephyrian communications. They think they've won a great victory. They're celebrating the destruction of our colonies." "Where are they now?" Admiral Reyes asked. "The main fleet is returning to their territory. They're broadcasting news of their success to other Zephyrian worlds. They want the whole galaxy to know they destroyed human settlements." President Santos stepped forward. "This is President Santos, Admiral Chen. What are your recommendations?" "Total war," Chen replied without hesitation. "They killed 20,000 civilians, including children. They destroyed research that could have saved lives across the galaxy. They need to pay for what they've done." "The Global Defense Council is meeting in 1 hour," Santos said. "I want full military options prepared." As reports continued coming in, the true scope of humanity's hidden military became clear. They had 847 battle cruisers scattered across the solar system, 12 Titan-class dreadnoughts, each capable of destroying entire enemy fleets, hundreds of smaller vessels designed for specific combat roles. More importantly, human technology was far more advanced than they had let the galaxy know. Their weapons could punch through any known shields. Their ships could travel faster and farther than anything else in space. Their artificial intelligence systems could coordinate attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. "Sir," a young officer approached General Harrison, "we're detecting movement from the outer defense grid." The outer defense grid was humanity's most classified secret. A network of automated defense platforms positioned at the edge of the solar system. They appeared to be simple navigation beacons. In reality, they were the first line of defense against invasion, armed with weapons that could destroy capital ships. "They're powering up their main weapons," the officer continued. "All platforms are showing green status." General Harrison nodded. "Good. If any Zephyrian ships try to attack Earth, they'll get a surprise they won't forget." In the Global Defense Council chamber, representatives from every nation on Earth gathered for an emergency session. The images from the destroyed colonies played on screens around the room. Pictures of burning schools, destroyed hospitals, and mass graves filled with human bodies. President Santos addressed the assembly. "Fellow leaders, we face a choice. For 50 years, we have hidden our strength and avoided conflict. We believed that peace was possible if we appeared harmless. Today, we learned the cost of that strategy." She paused, looking around the room. 20,000 of our people are dead, families destroyed, children murdered. Research that could have saved millions of lives has been lost, all because a militaristic species saw us as weak. The representative from the European Union spoke first. "What are you proposing, President Santos?" "Full military response," Santos replied. "We show the galaxy what happens when you attack human civilians. We make an example that will be remembered for centuries." The Chinese delegate raised his hand. "The Zephyrian hegemony has thousands of ships and controls dozens of worlds. Even with our hidden military, the cost of war will be enormous." "The cost of appearing weak has already been paid," Admiral Reyes interjected. "In the blood of our colonists. If we do nothing now, every predatory species in the galaxy will see us as easy targets." The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The images of dead children and burning colonies had settled the matter. Humanity would respond with overwhelming force. When the vote was taken, it was unanimous. President Santos returned to the war room, where Admiral Reyes was coordinating the military buildup. Fleets were forming throughout the solar system, preparing for the longest journey in human military history. "Admiral," Santos said, "you have authorization to proceed. Show the Zephyrians what they awakened when they attacked our people." "Yes, ma'am," Reyes replied. She turned to her communication officers. "Send the following message to all Zephyrian military frequencies. This is Admiral Helena Reyes of the Terran Defense Force. You have killed 20,000 human civilians in an unprovoked attack on peaceful colonies. We are coming to collect payment for this debt. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Continue to resist, and we will show you what humanity does to those who murder our children." Across the solar system, the human military machine prepared for war. Ships that had been hidden for decades emerged from secret bases. Weapons that had never been tested in combat powered up their systems. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment prepared for battle. The Zephyrians had made a simple mistake. They had judged humanity by what they wanted to see, not by what humans really were. They had attacked a peaceful facade and awakened something far more dangerous than they could imagine. Humanity was going to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. Commander Vextai was enjoying a victory celebration aboard his flagship when the first human ships appeared on his sensors. He had been drinking Zephyrian victory wine and accepting congratulations from his officers for the successful destruction of the human colonies. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, his voice tight with confusion. "I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching our position. Probably cargo ships coming to salvage the wreckage," Vextai said dismissively. "The humans are probably sending cleanup crews to recover their dead." "Sir, these aren't cargo ships. I'm reading massive energy signatures. These are warships, and they're huge." Vextai put down his wine and walked to the sensor station. What he saw on the display made his blood run cold. 12 massive vessels had just dropped out of hyperspace, each one twice the size of his flagship. Behind them came dozens of smaller ships, but even the smaller ones were larger than most Zephyrian battlecruisers. "How many ships?" he asked. "I count 47 vessels in the immediate area, sir, but there are more hyperspace signatures incoming, many more." Within minutes, the human fleet had grown to over 200 ships. They moved with perfect coordination, forming attack formations that Vextai had never seen before. Their ships were sleek and dark, designed for war rather than the peaceful exploration vessels the intelligence reports had described. "Open communication channels," Vextai ordered. "I want to speak with their commander." The main screen filled with the image of Admiral Helena Reyes. Her uniform was crisp and military, her expression cold as space itself. This was not the face of a peaceful farmer or trader. "Commander Vextai," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "I am Admiral Helena Reyes of the Terran Defense Force. You are responsible for the murder of 20,000 human civilians. You will surrender your fleet immediately and submit to war crimes trials." Vextai laughed, though it sounded forced even to his own ears. "Admiral, you are outnumbered. My fleet consists of 50 ships of the line. Your primitive technology is no match for Zephyrian military might." "Commander," Admiral Reyes replied calmly, "you are looking at less than 1/10 of the human fleet currently in this system. Your 50 ships are surrounded by 500 of ours. Your technology, which you believe to be superior, is about to be demonstrated as inferior in every possible way." As if to prove her point, more human ships began dropping out of hyperspace. They appeared from every direction, surrounding the Zephyrian fleet completely. Vextai's sensors counted 100 ships, then 200, then 300. They kept coming. "This is impossible," breathed his second-in-command. "Our intelligence said they were a weak species with primitive technology." "Your intelligence was wrong," Admiral Reyes said, apparently able to hear their conversation. "We allowed you to believe what you wanted to believe. We presented ourselves as weak because we hoped for peace. You chose war instead." The first demonstration of human technology came when Vextai ordered his fleet to attack. 50 Zephyrian warships opened fire with their most powerful weapons, energy beams that could crack planets. The human shields absorbed every shot without even flickering. Then the humans returned fire. The lead Zephyrian cruiser simply vanished. One moment it was there, firing its weapons and attempting to maneuver. The next moment there was nothing but empty space and expanding debris. The human weapon had completely destroyed a ship that carried 3,000 Zephyrian warriors. What kind of weapon was that? Vextai demanded of his tactical officer. Unknown, sir. I've never seen anything like it. The energy readings were off our instruments. More Zephyrian ships died in the next 60 seconds. The human weapons fired with surgical precision, targeting specific systems or simply vaporizing entire vessels. Their accuracy was perfect, their coordination flawless. Sir, we're being jammed, reported the communication officer. I can't contact the rest of the fleet. Navigation is down, called another officer. Hyperspace engines are offline. They're using some kind of interference field, the tactical officer explained. Our ships can't coordinate with each other and we can't retreat. Admiral Reyes appeared on the screen again. Commander Vextai, this is your final chance to surrender. Order your remaining ships to stand down and we will accept your capitulation. Vextai looked around his bridge. Half his fleet was already destroyed, and his remaining ships were being systematically picked apart by human weapons they couldn't even detect properly. His own flagship was taking damage from multiple sources and his shields were failing. You were supposed to be weak, he said, almost to himself. We were never weak, Admiral Reyes replied. We were patient. We were hoping the galaxy would leave us in peace. You chose to test that patience by murdering our families. The human fleet began broadcasting something on all Zephyrian frequencies. It was the final transmission from Sarah Chen, recorded moments before her death. Her voice filled every Zephyrian ship in the system. This is Colony Administrator Sarah Chen of New Eden. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. They came without warning and began orbital bombardment at 0600 local time. As Sarah's voice played, human ships continued their methodical destruction of the Zephyrian fleet. But they weren't just firing randomly. Each shot was carefully aimed to disable rather than destroy, leaving the crews alive but helpless. They're taking prisoners, Vextai realized. They want us alive. Please tell our families that we... Sarah's message cut off abruptly, just as it had when she died. That woman died trying to warn her people about you, Admiral Reyes said. She never got to finish her message home. She never got to say goodbye to her family. Neither did the 20,000 other humans you murdered. Vextai's flagship shuddered under another hit. His engines were dead, his weapons were offline, and his life support was failing. Around him, the remaining Zephyrian ships were being systematically disabled. I surrender, he said finally. My fleet surrenders. Acknowledged, Admiral Reyes replied. You will be taken to Earth to stand trial for war crimes. Your crews will be interned until the end of hostilities. Your ships will be impounded as evidence. Hostilities? Vextai asked. What hostilities? You've destroyed my fleet. Admiral Reyes smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Commander, did you think this was the end? You represent the Zephyrian hegemony. Your government ordered the attack on our colonies. This fleet engagement was just the beginning. Human transport ships moved in to collect the surviving Zephyrians. As Vextai was led away in restraints, he could see the human fleet preparing for departure. But they weren't heading home. They were heading deeper into Zephyrian territory. Where are they going? He asked his guard. To visit your homeworld, the human soldier replied. Your leaders need to learn what happens when you attack our children. Across the galaxy, other human fleets were emerging from hiding places throughout the Zephyrian territory. They had been there for months, invisible and patient, waiting for orders. Ships that had appeared to be cargo haulers dropped their disguises and revealed themselves as battleships. Research stations powered up weapons that could destroy space stations. The Zephyrian Military Command received frantic reports from across their empire. Human ships were appearing everywhere, attacking military installations and government facilities. Supply lines were being cut. Communication networks were being destroyed. How many ships do they have? Demanded the Zephyrian High Command. We don't know, sir. They seem to be everywhere at once. Our outer colonies are going dark one by one. But the humans weren't targeting civilian populations. They were being very careful to avoid non-military casualties. Their weapons struck with surgical precision, destroying only military targets and government buildings. They were demonstrating exactly the kind of restraint that the Zephyrians had not shown when attacking human colonies. On Earth, President Santos watched the reports coming in from across Zephyrian space. The human military was performing exactly as planned. Superior technology, better training, and overwhelming force were combining to dismantle the Zephyrian hegemony piece by piece. Ma'am, Admiral Reyes reported from her flagship. We've captured or destroyed 60% of their military assets. Their government is requesting negotiations. What are our terms? Santos asked. Complete and unconditional surrender. War crimes trials for all officers involved in the colony attacks. Reparations for the families of the victims. And most importantly, a guarantee that they will never again attack civilian targets. The Zephyrian High Command found themselves facing an impossible situation. Their military was being systematically destroyed by an enemy they had thought was weak. Their economy was collapsing as trade routes were cut. And the human fleet was approaching their homeworld with enough firepower to turn their entire planet into ash. But the humans weren't interested in genocide. They were interested in justice. The message they broadcast to the Zephyrian homeworld was simple. Surrender now, and your people will live. Continue to resist, and we will demonstrate why peaceful species sometimes survive longer than violent ones. The Zephyrian homeworld surrendered without a fight. Admiral Helena Reyes stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the massive planet filled the viewscreen. Below them, a civilization that had terrorized their neighbors for centuries was laying down their weapons and accepting defeat. "Ma'am," her communication officer reported, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from all major military installations. The Zephyrian High Command is requesting permission to begin formal surrender negotiations." "Granted," Reyes replied, "but first I want them to see something." The main human fleet took position around the planet while construction ships began their work. In the orbital space where the 3 human colonies had once existed, massive memorial stations began to take shape. Each station was built from quantum crystal and titanium, designed to last forever among the stars. The memorial at New Eden's location was the largest. Carved into its surface were the names of all 8,000 colonists who had died there. Sarah Chen's name was at the top, along with her final message played in a continuous loop. The wheat fields she had walked through on her last morning were recreated in holographic form, golden and peaceful. At Prometheus Station's coordinates, the memorial honored the 2,000 scientists and researchers who had died. Dr. Marcus Webb's research on the Rigelian plague cure was displayed prominently, a reminder that the Zephyrians had not just killed people, but had destroyed knowledge that could have saved lives across the galaxy. The Terra Nova Memorial was the most heartbreaking. It included a children's section with pictures and drawings from the 300 young students who had attended school there. Tommy Rodriguez's crayon drawing of his family was displayed next to his name, a bright splash of color against the dark memorial stone. But these memorials were not just monuments to the dead. They were also heavily fortified military bases, equipped with weapons powerful enough to destroy entire fleets. The message was clear. Humanity would remember what had happened here, and they would never allow it to happen again. Commander Vextai stood in chains in the War Crimes Tribunal on Earth. The courtroom was filled with families of the colonists who had died in his attack. He was forced to watch recordings from the colony surveillance systems, showing his soldiers hunting down and killing civilians who were trying to hide. "The defendant will rise," said the judge, a stern woman who had lost her own sister in the Terra Nova attack. Vextai struggled to his feet. The past months in human custody had broken his spirit. He had been treated according to human military law, fed properly and given medical care. But he had also been forced to confront the reality of what he had done. "Commander Vextai of the former Zephyrian hegemony," the judge continued, "you have been found guilty of war crimes, murder of civilians, and crimes against humanity. The sentence of this court is life imprisonment on Titan Penal Colony, where you will have ample time to think about the children you killed." As Vextai was led away, he passed photographs of his victims lining the courtroom walls, families who would never be whole again, children who would never grow up, scientists whose work would never be completed. The Zephyrian hegemony itself no longer existed. The human military had dismantled it completely, breaking it up into smaller democratic governments that would be monitored for decades to come. Every Zephyrian military officer above the rank of lieutenant had been put on trial. Their weapons had been confiscated. Their military shipyards had been converted to civilian use. But humanity's response went far beyond simple revenge. The former Zephyrian territories received massive aid packages to help them transition to peaceful governments. Human teachers and advisors worked with local populations to establish schools and hospitals. The goal was not to punish innocent Zephyrians, but to ensure that their culture of military aggression could never rise again. The effect on the rest of the galaxy was immediate and profound. The Galactic Council met in emergency session just weeks after the human victory. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss what they had witnessed. The peaceful farmers and traders they had dismissed as weak had just destroyed one of the most powerful military empires in the galaxy. "The question before us," said the council president, an elderly Altarian diplomat, "is how we respond to humanity's emergence as a major military power." The debate was intense. Some species argued that humanity was now a threat that needed to be contained. Others pointed out that the humans had shown remarkable restraint, targeting only military assets and avoiding civilian casualties even while they destroyed their enemies. "I was there when the hegemony attacked the Rigelian colonies 40 years ago," spoke up Ambassador Kethai of Rigel. "They showed no mercy. They killed millions of my people and enslaved the survivors. When humanity had the chance for similar revenge, they chose differently." The human representative, Ambassador Patricia Wong, addressed the council for the first time as a member of a major power, rather than a minor agricultural species. "We never wanted to be seen as a threat," she said simply. "We still don't. We hid our military capabilities because we hoped to live in peace with our neighbors. The Zephyrians forced us to reveal our true strength, but our goals haven't changed. We want to trade, to learn, to grow. We want to explore the galaxy and make friends with other species." She paused, looking around the chamber at representatives who had ignored humanity for decades. "But we will never again allow anyone to mistake our desire for peace as weakness," she continued. "If you attack our colonies, if you murder our families, if you threaten our children, you will discover that humanity's greatest weapon is not our technology. It's that we can appear harmless right up until the moment we destroy you completely." The message was received clearly by every species in the galaxy. Within months, several aggressive empires that had been planning their own expansion campaigns quietly canceled their military buildups. Trade agreements with human colonies were signed eagerly. Diplomatic relationships that had been cold for decades suddenly warmed. Nobody wanted to be the next Zephyrian hegemony. Back in human space, new colonies were being established. But these settlements looked very different from the ones that had been destroyed. They still had farms and research stations, schools and hospitals. Children still played in the fields while their parents worked. But now everyone knew the truth about humanity's defenses. The communication towers that charged at night. The mining equipment that could transform into weapons systems. The cargo ships that could become battleships at a moment's notice. President Santos visited the New Eden Memorial Station 5 years after the massacre. She was older now, her hair gray from the stress of leading humanity through its first galactic war, but her eyes were still sharp as she looked out at the holographic wheat fields. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked Admiral Reyes, who had become her closest advisor. 20,000 people were murdered in cold blood, Reyes replied. "The Zephyrians needed to pay for that crime. But more importantly, we needed to send a message to every predatory species in the galaxy." And what message was that? That humanity will defend itself. That we will not be easy prey. That if you want to coexist with us, you need to respect our right to live in peace. They stood in silence for a while, watching the holographic recreation of Sarah Chen walking through her wheat fields on that last peaceful morning. In the distance, they could see cargo ships arriving with supplies for the memorial station. But both women knew that those cargo ships could become warships in minutes if needed. A young girl ran up to them, no older than Tommy Rodriguez had been when he died. She was the daughter of one of the memorial station crew members. "Born after the war ended, Mrs. President," the girl said excitedly. "My teacher says you helped stop the bad people who hurt the colonists. Is that true?" Santos knelt down to the girl's level. "Many people helped stop them, sweetheart. Soldiers and sailors, scientists and engineers, ordinary citizens who stood up for what was right. Will the bad people ever come back?" Santos looked up at Admiral Reyes, then back at the child. "I don't think so, honey. The galaxy learned an important lesson about what happens when you hurt innocent people. Most species prefer to be our friends now." The girl smiled and ran back to her parents. Santos and Reyes watched her go, another child who would grow up safe because of the price that had been paid. Throughout the galaxy, the story of humanity's awakening became legend. It was told in the academies of peaceful species as an example of how patience and restraint could coexist with overwhelming strength. It was whispered in the military colleges of aggressive species as a warning about the dangers of underestimating your enemies. And on Earth, in the deep bunkers beneath Geneva, Admiral Rhea's successors continued their eternal watch. The human military remained hidden, ready to emerge if humanity's children were ever threatened again. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Don't mistake humanity's kindness for weakness. Don't confuse their desire for peace with an inability to wage war, and never, ever attack their children, because that's when you discover that humanity's greatest monsters are the ones who choose to be gentle until they don't.